So hello, my name's Jaś. I'm the CEO of Eve Sleep, which is a direct-to-consumer mattress brand that launched 2 years ago in the UK, 2.5 years ago. My background in the internet was with Rocket Internet, who are the largest incubator of internet businesses in the world. And for those guys, I built a few companies. Most notably, I headed up and ran Zalando in the UK for the first year of its operations. And I was also one of the founders of CityDeal, which we sold to Groupon back in 2011. And after leaving Groupon, the company then was very focused on services, but they were starting to make the transition into products. And with some friends of mine, we saw an opportunity to start running product deals on Groupon back in 2011. We looked for high-margin categories that could fit the Groupon discounting model, and we looked for things that we could source locally so that we didn't have to hold stock. And this sort of strange thought process led us to the idea of doing mattresses. And back in 2011, we started to approach manufacturers, and so we said, we have this idea. We want to put a mattress deal on Groupon, and we expect to sell anywhere between 50 and a few hundred units. And the manufacturer that we chose eventually, they said, look, we're the biggest manufacturer in the world. Even if you sell 20,000, it won't be a problem. So we put our deal on Groupon, and on the first day, we sold 6,000 mattresses. It became the biggest ever Groupon deal. We turned over $2 million. And we went back to the manufacturer and we said, hey, great news, guys. We sold 6,000 mattresses. And they said, are you fucking kidding me? No one on the planet can manufacture 6,000 mattresses in that time. We told you we could do it because we thought you guys were crazy and we wanted to get rid of you. So this left us with this sort of interesting problem. We had 6,000 orders, but we had no mattresses and we had no money to buy them either. But like all good entrepreneurs, we started sort of hustling away. And we started sort of put it together. We renegotiated payment terms with Groupon, so they released the funds bit by bit. We found box suppliers, cover suppliers, various memory foam suppliers around the world, and we managed to do it in the end. One of the stories that I remember, I forgot to change the slide thing, sorry. One of the stories I remember was one of the manufacturer that we went with in the end. They had to do the deal, they had to manufacture 24 hours a day through the night. And the neighbors from the factory, they started to complain, and they eventually complained to the council, who came along and said, you guys have got to stop manufacturing after 6 p.m. because people are complaining. And they said, of course, and they kept manufacturing. In the end, the council would force these guys to leave the building at 6 p.m., and they would put chains on the doors. And what these guys did, pirates actually, what they did is they dug a tunnel under the back of the factory. And after the council would put the chains on the door and they would leave, they would drive around, and they'd go under the tunnel. They'd say goodnight to the guys from the council, and they'd go under the tunnel, and they would just keep manufacturing. And that's how we managed to fulfill the deal on Groupon. And at the same time, we ran it on 18 countries. We ended up selling 25,000 mattresses in our first 4 months, about 300,000 other bedding products, just same thing, Groupon discount deals. I would say that that business was more opportunistic than visionary, but because in the early days we were bootstrapped, we did a lot of the customer services ourselves, and we started to understand what it was that made this product so successful, which we hadn't expected, really. The first thing was the simplicity. We found that consumers find mattress choices really, really difficult. There's loads of options. They don't really understand the difference between spring and memory foam, etc. But because Groupon was a deal-a-day platform, we could only offer one product. And we would say, it's perfect, perfection is not subjective, and we're so confident that we give you 100 nights to try the product out at home. The second big thing was price. Normally, mattresses are sold through retail stores, and the markups are anything 6 to 8 times manufacturing cost. By going direct to consumer and cutting out the middleman, what it meant was we could sell a mattress for about half of what it, or even a third of what it costs in a retail store. I remember the biggest mattress brand in the world is called Temper, and I remember our first ever marketing campaign said a premium mattress at a third of the price, someone's going to lose their temper. So we were always very sort of disruptive to the big industry guys. And the final thing that we started to understand was what I later sort of learned was called branding, but it's this idea of beauty and the idea that a lot of amazing stuff happens in bed, but no mattress companies talk about things like sex or cuddling up with your partner or reading books to your kids. Mattresses are sold like toilet paper, and we started to build a brand around all the beautiful stuff that happens in bed and started trying to sort of make it look a little bit more beautiful too. The first guy that I approached was my cousin Kuba, who can't be here today, unfortunately, but he was a branding guy, and we said to him, how do we make this sort of product sexy and interesting? And he came up with this idea of every great day starts the night before, and the idea that rather than, what's interesting about sleep is not the 8 hours a night where you're in a coma, but the 16 hours where you're awake. And from there, he built this beautiful brand with the yellow color scheme to symbolize sort of sunrise and morning and energy, and the logo that also is a sunrise and eve, again, this idea of every great day starts the night before. And we launched February 2015, on Valentine's Day, actually. Since then, we've raised £57 million in funding, including 35 million at our IPO back in May, which was the first retail IPO of the year in the UK and one of the fastest IPOs in UK corporate history. We're now in 15 markets in 2 years, and our vision is to become the leading European sleep brand. What I always think about is that if you think about technology, you have Apple. If you have Nike, you have sleep. If you want sports, you want Nike. But for sleep, there isn't really a go-to place. There isn't really a brand that defines the category. So that really is our vision and the opportunity, and sleep is a £26 billion category in Europe. Some of the challenges we faced, I remember in the early days when we would call people up and say, hi, I'm calling from an online mattress company, the answer was always that, like whether it was investors, journalists, people we wanted to hire. Now looking at the sort of press coverage we get, at the team we've built, at the investors that have joined us, it's pretty humbling. Also scaling, going from one product, one country, very simple, to launching across 15 markets, now 15 products. That's been quite a big challenge. And the final thing has been the rise of copycats. When we started, it was quite an innovative idea to sell mattresses online. Now there's a number of people doing it, but Eve are the biggest, we're the first, and we believe we'll blow our competitors out of the water. One other thing that I thought I would say, because I hope there are some other startups here and not just finance people. And what I love to, I guess what I wanted to say is like why it is that I love Eve and why it is that I love startups. I love proving people wrong. And when we started, everybody said, you can't sell mattresses online, you can't do an IPO in 2 years, you can't make it yellow. And it's been so amazing just constantly doing these things that we thought were impossible. Secondly, I love the freedom of building your own business and starting with this kind of blank canvas and anything is possible idea at the beginning. And finally, we built this with my best friends and my cousin, and I just love the sort of joy of coming into work and working with my closest people every day. And it's that joy that I would sort of hope to pass on to anybody who's working in startups today. Thank you very much.